The smell of malt vinegar on a warm pantry shelf is not something you forget. 1942, Coventry. A woman in a wool cardigan with a ration book in her apron pocket lifted a square of damp linen from the bowl on her stone slab and wrapped it around a head of lettuce that should have been wilted 3 days earlier. It was crisp. It cost her nothing. That kitchen is gone now. Today, the average British household throws away nearly £1,000 worth of food a year, and seniors living alone more than anyone, buying for a table that used to seat 5, paying supermarket prices for freshness that wilts before Friday. The solutions sat on every shelf in 1947. They were not lost, they were quietly removed. These are 30 of those tricks. Number 30 is where it begins. Number 30 is the damp linen lettuce wrap, born in an urban larder in 1942 when a Women's Institute domestic instructor showed a circle of housewives how a square of unbleached linen, wrung in cold water until it held no drips, could keep a cabbage or a head of lettuce crisp for 6 to 8 days without a fridge. The cloth went over the leaves. The leaves went into a covered enamel bowl. The bowl went on the coolest shelf. A Ministry of Food leaflet on storage taught the technique to thousands of women whose kitchens had no electric cold and whose rationed greens had to last a full week. The linen breathed. The water cooled the leaves by slow evaporation. The enamel sealed the system from dust and warmth. It looked like superstition. Modern food scientists call it controlled humidity. The principle is the same one used today in commercial vegetable storage rooms, costing tens of thousands of pounds. A square of cloth did it for nothing. Number 29 is the trick of pointing eggs downward. In a chipped earthenware bowl on a north-facing shelf, eggs sat point end down, never up. The science is quiet and exact. An egg has a small air sac at its rounded end. Stand it the wrong way and the yolk drifts toward that air. The membrane weakens and the egg ages in days. Flip it pointed end down and the yolk floats centered in albumin for 2 to 3 weeks longer. A 1944 Ministry of Food circular taught it to a country that could not afford to crack a bad egg. With 1 fresh egg per person per week on the ration, a single spoiled shell was a small disaster. The bowl on the shelf became a quiet calendar of freshness. Newest at the back, oldest at the front. Everyone tipped downward like a row of soldiers, a gesture, a whisper of physics. Most people never knew why. Number 28 is the sugar cube in the bread tin. 1947. A suburban kitchen, a tin-lined bread bin with a single white lump tucked beside the loaf. The Good Housekeeping Institute manual of the late 1940s explained it without flourish. Sugar is hygroscopic. It pulls moisture from the air faster than mold can settle. The crust stayed firm, the crumbs stayed alive, mold came 3 or 4 days late. Bread in 1947 was a measured, costly thing. The post-war loaf was still subject to the national loaf rules, dense, dark, and meant to last. A single cube extended its life by nearly half, 1 cube, 4 extra days. No one writes that on a plastic wrapper. Number 27 is the vinegar-wiped larder shelf. A weekly ritual carried in Women's Institute circulars after the war, a saucer of malt vinegar, a folded cotton rag, a wipe along every plank, every corner, every glass jar. The acetic acid killed mold spores before they bloomed. Preserves lasted weeks longer. The smell of a clean larder used to be sharp, not chemical. It was the smell of intention, of a household keeping itself ahead of decay by a margin of 1 cloth and 1 bottle. The ritual was Saturday morning before the shopping arrived, before the children came down. Number 27 was eradicated by aerosol sprays sold in cans the size of a child's arm, marketed as modern, leaving behind a chemical sheen that did less than the vinegar ever had. Number 26 is the bay leaf in the flour bin, taught on the BBC Home Service's wartime kitchen front broadcasts, and continued into 1948 by village grocers and household columnists. A single dried bay leaf laid on the surface of the flour inside a ceramic bin. Weevils detected the oils and refused to enter. The flour stayed clean for months. In an era when a stone of flour cost a serious fraction of a weekly wage, losing a bin to insects was not a household inconvenience but a household disaster. The pests left. The flour stayed. No one explained the chemistry. The leaf was free. It came from a tree in the garden or a paper twist from the grocer for a penny. It worked for as long as it kept its scent, and a careful housewife replaced it the moment the smell faded. Number 25 is the apple wrapped in newspaper, 1946, an allotment seller. A National Allotment Society storage guide instructed members to wrap each apple individually in folded newsprint and lay them in a single layer in a wooden crate, none touching. The reason is invisible to the eye. Apples release ethylene as they age. Ethylene speeds the ripening of every apple beside them. Wrap them, isolate them, and the gas cannot travel. One bad apple really does spoil the barrel unless you stop it talking to the others. Apples lasted from October to March, 6 months of fruit from a single autumn. The newspaper, already read and already paid for, did the work of a refrigerated warehouse. Children pulled their winter apples from the crate one by one, the print of yesterday's headlines faintly transferred to the skin. The taste of an apple in March, kept like that, was sweeter than any imported one bought in a plastic bag today. Number 24 is butter stored underwater, a French method adopted in British homes during the rationing years. A glazed earthenware crock with a lid that doubled as a butter chamber. The butter packed tight inside the inverted lid. The lid lowered into a base of cold water, air sealed out. Butter spreadable, sweet, fresh, for 2 to 3 weeks at room temperature. With 4 ounces of butter per person per week on the ration, every gram had to last. The crock sat on the coolest shelf. The water changed every 2 days. The butter pulled out on a cold knife and spread thin across the morning toast. The fridge replaced it, then forgot it ever existed. Number 23 is the cold stone slab for milk, 1940. A rural larder in Yorkshire or Devon, north-facing, the slate or marble cold to the touch even in August. A glass milk bottle covered with muslin sat on the slab. The stone held its temperature for hours. The muslin breathed. Milk that would have soured by lunchtime kept until the next morning. The principle was thermal mass. A heavy, dense stone kept in shadow, surrendering its cold slowly to whatever sat upon it. A slab of stone outperformed half a century of plastic. Then the larder began to vanish, and the slab went with it, broken up for garden paving or simply left behind when the house was extended and the alcove plastered shut. Number 22 is salt-rubbed cabbage, 1952. A domestic science classroom in a secondary modern, the teacher pressing coarse sea salt into shredded white cabbage in a glass bowl. 30 minutes later, the leaves were soft, glossy, gently sweet. No boiling, no sulphurous steam, no nutrient loss. The school's council home economics syllabus taught it to a generation. The chemistry is osmosis, the salt drawing water out of the leaf cells until they collapse into tenderness. The vitamins stayed. The colour stayed. The smell that drove people out of British kitchens for decades never appeared. Boiling cabbage was the first thing my nan never did. Number 21 is the stale bread revival taught by Marguerite Patton on a BBC Home Service recipe broadcast in 1955. A stale loaf wrapped in a wet tea towel, a gas oven set to gas mark 4, 8 minutes. The crust crisped, the crumb softened, the bread came out indistinguishable from fresh. The water in the towel turned to steam under the heat, rehydrating the bread from the outside in, while the oven crisped the surface. A loaf saved, a meal preserved. Stale bread was never thrown away, it was simply paused. Patton herself, broadcasting weekly to millions of housewives, called the trick the most useful 8 minutes any kitchen could spend. Number 20 is onion skins in stock, 1958. A household column writer instructed readers to drop the brown papery skins into a simmering pot. Within an hour, the broth turned deep amber, faintly sweet, richly coloured. A domestic management textbook noted the same. The skins, normally bound for the bin, contained the same flavonoids, quercetin chief among them, that modern nutrition columns now praise as anti-inflammatory. Colour in a soup used to come from peelings, not packets. Number 19 is the wooden spoon laid across the boiling pot. The trick traces to Edwardian cookery books and survived into the 1953 kitchen as a quiet reflex, a long wooden handle laid flat across the rim. Rising starch foam climbed, met the cold, dry wood and broke. The pot did not boil over. Mrs. Beaton's revised editions explained it in a single line. The wood, hydrophobic and porous, popped the bubbles by surface tension and gentle absorption. No spilled potato water, no scorched ring to clean. Physics, not folklore. Number 18 is carrots in damp sand. 1949, an allotment shed, a wooden box, a layer of clean sand, carrots laid horizontal, none touching. The post-war reissue of the Dig for Victory storage instructions described the method exactly. The sand held humidity, the dark blocked light, the carrots stayed firm and sweet from October to April. 6 months in a wooden box, no fridge, no bag, no waste. Beetroot, parsnips, Swedes. All of them kept the same way, rows of root vegetables sleeping through the winter in their wooden bed. The allotment shed at the end of the garden was a second larder, built of timber and sand and patience. Number 17 is a spoonful of vinegar in the poaching water. 1956, a domestic science classroom. White vinegar stirred into a simmering pan a moment before the egg slipped in. The acid tightened the white instantly. No shredding, no straining. A perfect poach every time. A Good Housekeeping monthly column taught it to readers who had been failing at it for years. The albumin in egg white coagulates faster in acidic water, wrapping the yolk before it can escape. 1 teaspoon of acid. A century of failed poached eggs solved. Number 16 is a pinch of bicarbonate of soda in the cabbage water. 1951. A Ministry of Food Vegetable Cookery leaflet recommended it for colour. The alkaline water kept greens vivid, almost luminous. Modern science notes the trade-off. Bicarb degrades vitamin C. Beauty had a cost. Nan knew. She did it anyway. The Sunday plate had to look like Sunday, and a grey heap of cabbage on the edge of a roast was a defeat she would not accept. Number 15 is the tea towel over the teapot, the 1950s kitchen. A thick cotton cozy or a folded towel doubled around the pot. The insulation trapped heat. The tea steeped to full strength without reheating. The cozy was never cosmetic, it was thermodynamic. A pot brewed at 4 o'clock could still pour a strong second cup at 5, the leaves giving up their last colour to a kitchen that respected the time tea needed. The knitted versions, made by aunts and grandmothers in winter evenings, were practical engineering disguised as crochet. Now picture the High Street in 1971. The first Tesco superstore opens its doors and changes the geography of British food in a single afternoon. Cling film arrives in domestic kitchens, sold as freshness in a roll. A chrome-edged box of it lands on a counter where a vinegar cloth used to sit. A new council house plan is drawn that does not include a north-facing larder. Something is changing, and the kitchen does not yet know it has lost the argument. Number 14 is the floured knife for cutting cake. 1957, a Women's Institute baking judge taught it at a county show. A long bread knife dipped in cold flour before the first slice. Friction reduced. The blade glided. The sponge held its shape. WI baking competition guidance described the technique to women preparing for the village hall judging table, where a clean slice could win or lose a rosette. A perfect slice was a sign of competence. There was a method. Number 13 is the potato slice for over-salted stew. 1962. A Yorkshire household cook with a copy of a regional newspaper recipe column on her kitchen table. A raw peeled potato halved and dropped into the pot. 20 minutes simmering. The starch absorbed the salt. The potato was discarded. The stew was rescued. A meal that would have been thrown out was instead served to 4, the family unaware that anything had gone wrong. Disasters were quietly fixed. Then disasters started arriving in plastic trays and could not be fixed at all. Number 12 is the iron nail in the apple. The trick was carried in wartime nutrition pamphlets and persisted into the 1970s as folk medicine in households where doctors were rare and tablets were rationed. A clean iron nail driven into a fresh apple left overnight, the nail removed in the morning. The apple eaten as a folk remedy for low iron. Stories passed down through kitchens held that pregnant women and pale children were fed these apples through the winter. Modern doctors smile. Modern doctors also prescribe iron tablets that cost a great deal more than an apple and a nail. Number 11 is the crust saved for soup, 1965. A household column writer described a calico bag hanging behind a kitchen door, filled with the dried hard ends of every loaf, ground into raspings, coated fish, thickened soup, fed children for a week. A domestic management chapter on Remains called it the household's quiet economy, the small, unbroken loop of nothing wasted, nothing bought twice. Nothing was rubbish. Rubbish was an invention of supermarkets. Number 10 is lemon juice on cut apples, cultural common knowledge by the 1950s, repeated in every domestic textbook of the era. Half a lemon squeezed over sliced fruit in a glass dish. The ascorbic acid blocked oxidation. Lunchbox apples stayed white for 6 hours or more. A drop of acid, a child's lunchbox saved. Replaced by a packet of crisps wrapped in foil that costs more, lasts shorter, and feeds nobody properly. Number 9 is the tin of mustard powder beside the cooker. 1967, a household tip column cited a Coleman's recipe leaflet of the period. A pinch of dry mustard stirred into a cheese sauce. Flavor deepened, salt reduced, cheaper, sharper. Mustard powder cost pence. A jar lasted a year. The same depth of flavor now arrives in a plastic bottle of factory cheese sauce at 6 times the price and half the punch. It tasted of intention. Most modern sauces taste of factories. Number 8 is the avoidance of twice-boiled water. 1964. A tea-board guidance leaflet explained that reboiled water has lost its dissolved oxygen, leaving tea flat. A fresh kettle fill from the cold tap delivered a brew that tasted alive. A small ritual, the kettle emptied, refilled, set to boil again, that separated a careful cup from a careless one. The taste of British tea declined the moment we stopped caring why. Number 7 is the folded brown paper for the Sunday roast, 1959. A sheet of dampened butcher's paper laid loose over the joint. Mrs. Beeton's mid-century revised editions described the method. The paper moderated the heat. The meat browned slowly, evenly, with no scorch. The fat rendered, the juices stayed. The Sunday roast was a household event built on small, precise techniques like this one, each handed from mother to daughter without ceremony, the paper saved from the morning's parcel of meat and put to a second use before the afternoon was over. Foil came later. The roast was already perfect. Then came the second blow. Cling film, marketed as freshness, accelerated decay on half the produce it touched. It trapped ethylene, it trapped condensation. Vegetables sweated and rotted under the very plastic that promised to save them. A cucumber wrapped tight in film softened in days. A bowl of leftovers sealed under plastic grew the kind of greyness no muslin cloth had ever produced. The supermarket refrigerator created a dependence the larder had never demanded. Households that had managed perfectly without one for centuries now could not imagine their week without it. The improvement was a trap. Number 6 is the cold spoon test for jam, 1953. A jam-making champion at a Women's Institute county fair. A chilled saucer beside her copper pan. A teaspoon of bubbling jam dropped onto the cold plate. A finger pushed across. If it wrinkled, it was set. The W.I. Preserves handbook taught it to thousands. No thermometer, no timer, only the wrinkle on a spoon. The same test used today in artisan kitchens, charging £8 a jar for what a village hall produced for the price of the sugar. Number 5 is the cling film inversion, the damp cloth over the bowl. The trick was founded in 1944 and rediscovered in the 2000s by a generation realizing the plastic had failed them. A square of muslin over a ceramic bowl of leftovers. The cloth breathed. No condensation, no trapped gases, no sweating cheese, no slimy salad. Leftovers lasted longer than under plastic. Plastic was sold as progress. The cloth had already won. Number 4 is reusing the vegetable water for gravy. The wartime Use Everything pamphlets taught it in 1947, and it returned in modern frugal cooking guides decades later. The starchy water from boiled potatoes poured into a roasting tin. Flour whisked into the pan juices. A gravy richer, cheaper and more nourishing than any from a packet, the dissolved minerals of the vegetables flowing into the meal that needed them most. Stock cubes are the tax we pay for forgetting. Number 3 is the damp tea towel under the chopping board. The trick was carried from 1950s pub kitchens into domestic ones, a folded cloth between the wooden board and the counter. The cloth gripped, the board held still. Cuts came cleaner. Fingers stayed whole. Every professional kitchen still uses it. Every grandmother who ever owned a wooden board knew it without being told. Safety used to be a folded towel. Now it's a £29 silicone mat sold in a department store with a barcode and a warranty. Number 2 is the lemon rolled and warmed. The 1980s, the transitional decade when the larder generation taught the microwave generation one last thing before the gap closed forever. A whole lemon rolled firmly under a palm against a wooden table, then warmed for 10 seconds in the new white box on the counter. The cell walls broke. The juice tripled. No waste. A lemon that had once given a tablespoon now gave 3, the difference between half a recipe and a whole one. The last trick the larder generation taught the microwave generation. And then came the third blow, the one that finished the work the supermarket and the cling film had begun. Home economics was quietly reduced in British schools, no longer a core subject, no longer a required hour in every girl's week or boy's. The exam papers shrank. The kitchens at the end of the corridor were converted into computer rooms. The larder was removed from the standard new-build housing plan, its cool north-facing alcove redrawn as a fitted cupboard above a power socket meant for a fridge. Within one generation, the architecture forgot. The curriculum forgot. The kitchen forgot. The chain that had carried these tricks unbroken from the 1930s to the 1970s, mother to daughter, teacher to pupil, neighbor to neighbor over a garden fence, broadcast to listener on a Tuesday morning wireless, went silent in less than 20 years. The last women who had learned the system as girls were not asked to teach it. Their daughters bought ready meals. Their granddaughters bought apps. Number 1 is the larder itself, the trick that contained all the others. A north-facing alcove, a slate shelf, a mesh window for cool air. A column of still, cold, breathing space inside the house, ventilated to the outside, sheltered from the sun, separated from the warmth of the kitchen by a heavy door with a brass latch worn smooth by 50 years of hands. Post-war housing standards built it into nearly every new home, and the Parker-Morris standards of 1961 still recognized cool food storage as a basic requirement of decent housing. By the late 1970s, the alcove had been replaced by a fitted cupboard above a humming fridge. The slate slab vanished. The mesh window was bricked over. The cool air column was gone. An architectural historian once described its disappearance as the quietest extinction in British domestic life. An entire room erased without protest, without obituary, without record. Every other trick had lived inside it. The lettuce in damp linen, the eggs pointed down, the butter underwater, the carrots in sand, the apples in newspaper, the bread with its sugar cube beside it on the tin shelf, the vinegar-wiped planks that smelled of cleanliness, the bay leaf in the flour, the crock and the cloth and the calico bag of crusts behind the door. Each trick depended on the cool, the dark, the ventilation, the silence of that small, dedicated space. When the larder went, they all went with it. The fridge hums in a modern open-plan kitchen in 2026. Behind a stack of plastic containers on a high shelf, a single empty Kilner jar, lid loose, glass dusty, label faded to a ghost. A woman reaches past it for a roll of cling film. She pauses. She does not take the jar down. In a drawer she does not open, a folded square of unbleached linen waits, the way it has waited for 50 years, the cloth her grandmother once wrung in cold water on a frosted morning in Coventry. Beside it, in a cardboard box at the back of the same drawer, a small earthenware crock with a missing lid, a bay leaf, brittle and brown, at the bottom of an empty flour bin, a bread tin with a rust mark where a sugar cube once sat. The fridge hums on. Nobody opens the drawer. The light through the window falls across the empty jar and moves on. The kitchen is quiet. The knowledge is still there. Nobody is listening for it.